courses that we take here, but we're just focusing on one little part of it, the communication core. So this direction comes from the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. So that's the government agency that kind of provides guidance for our work, provides structure and requirements for our work. So the registrar's office will report what we're doing to them, and then they provide us with rules and guidance so we can provide you with the best education that's needed. They didn't just say, oh, we need to go look at the core and change it. They said, let's take a look at this and make sure we're doing what we really should do that's going to provide students, provide you with what you need to be successful when you go out into the world. So this is the specific definition of the area that we're looking at. When you think of communication, maybe we think about speaking, or maybe we think about writing, but really there's all kinds of things that it can encompass. It can be oral communication like we're doing now. It can be visual. This is visual. It's also textual, right? It can be oral, which means what we're listening to. All these skills come together, and we can have the best ideas in the world, but if we're not effective in getting those ideas across to someone else, then they're not getting their full benefit. So that's one of the reasons we think this is so important, and the coordinating board thinks it's so important. This is the part we're looking at. So the questions, right? What are the research questions? What we wanted to do basically was look and see, okay, this is the way the core is now, before the changes are coming about. This is how we are addressing the requirements of making sure our students receive this basic core foundation. And then, that's in the fall of 2013. Fall of 2014 is when the new core comes in effect. So we wanted to look in the fall of 2014 and see what's happening then. How are people addressing the communication core, and compare the two and see how they've adapted. So this will be helpful, we hope, to people across the state of Texas, but also specifically to our university, because we have an English department and a communication department, and we have things that we teach that are similar, and we have things we teach that are different. How can we work together and learn from each other, and then have that be the best result for you? And this core has been around for a long time, since 1987. So that's what, 24 years now that we've been having the core curriculum. Everybody who graduates with a bachelor's degree has this foundation. And the last time it was reviewed was over 15 years ago. So it's a good time to look and see if any changes needed to be made. Maybe sometimes you look at things and you say, no, what we're doing right now is working perfectly. But in 15 years, there were some things that were identified that could be improved. This is key right here. For us here at MSU, that means for people who are falling under the fall 2014 core and forward, instead of 9 hours of communication courses, it's only 6. So if you think about that, that's like 1/3 is being cut out. So as a teacher and as a student, what can we best do with those 6 hours to help you? Right? We used to have 9 semester credit hours, 3 classes. Now it's just 2. So we need to be even more careful about selecting what those are going to be. And maybe it ends up being more choices for you. You can select what works, you think will work best for you. Okay, Dr. Henschel?
So then we began to look at how we're going to collect this information, because any core study requires pulling in a whole lot of data, and that's very difficult work to do. So luckily, we had a grant from Eureka, which allowed Kelly and Danielle to work with Dr. Lewis and me in pulling together this data. So what did we need to collect? We needed to find, we refined our scope initially to state universities. So universities like MSU, where you can get a 4-year degree. So we're just looking at the undergraduate curriculum. So we wanted to look at the state universities offering communication core courses. And this was kind of interesting, because what we began to discover is that while we had a list of 38 state universities, originally, in our original list, when we started to look at them, not all them were offering the core courses. It was because many of these universities had satellite universities and they were just offering upper level courses. So that was interesting. So we would have to call and check, it was a, one-on-one, discussion with somebody at the university. And many of them would say, well, that's how it's happening right now, but in the fall, it will be different yet. So this has been a very difficult thing to tie down because these changes are going on. We wanted to know the departments and the programs because, as Dr. Lewis showed you, currently with the core, you're seeing really two departments that are being involved, speech and English for the core. And that's going to shift because this is being opened up. The communication core is no longer going to be just English or speech, but whatever department proposes a course that would need the communication core. So we want to follow that. We wanted to look at course titles as well as course descriptions, because what we found in our studies with other work is that often the title doesn't completely reflect the description. So what are we going to use to find this information? Sample syllabi, we're pulling this down really for archival purposes at this point, and the mode of delivery. We're interested in whether these courses are being offered on-site or online, and if possible, we could see if it was both. So where are we going to get this information? We have three primary areas for getting this information. The Texas General Education Core Web Center, the Coordinating Board Spring Class Report. It's called CBM 004, wonderful document that they've shared with us, and the University Undergraduate Catalogs. So the first resource we consulted was the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board Web Center, this core web center. This is a wonderful resource that was put together by Texas State University. And you can see how it works here. When we had that first chip, what was going on with the core and why the core was established with the dates that Dr. Lewis showed you was that a lot of students transfer. And the state was concerned that when you transferred, that these core courses went with you, right? You didn't want to start all over again. If any of you switched from state to state, you can see, oh man, I met this core, but I don't need this core. The state didn't want to see that happening. So Texas State put together this database, and you can see here, we've got these community college, that's just A, because it's the first college listed, and it listed at this time, when we looked at it, 87 community college districts and universities. And people would submit their core, which made it really easy for us. We thought, this is great. We just put in communication and pull these down. We ran into some problems with this because that Dave Nelson put this together. What we found was that it wasn't updated. So, there was no system set in place to require that people put this information out. As we were looking through the dates, they had very carefully gone in and said maybe this was 2009 or 2011, 2012. We realized it wasn't updated. So we spoke to people at Texas State University, and they said that this is being phased out and it will be taken over now by the Texas Education Coordinating Board to make sure that it's updated. That's really kind of what we're waiting on right now, is the pulling of all of these new core curriculums, and hopefully this month. So then what are we going to do? We got this class report, and this has a wealth of information. At the end of every semester, every state, school, and university has to submit all of the information on their classes to the state. So we contacted the coordinating board and asked if we could have access to this, and they allowed us to. They removed the faculty names, but we have all this information. So as you can see here, it's just a screenshot, at this particular university, and this is the university. That's its name, its number, and then the course, and the course section. So this is a lot like when you're getting ready to enroll for spring. You can see here are the courses. So we had all this information, and we knew we were going to need to make some changes. And this is the really, difficult work of Kelly and Danielle right now. First, we went in and we, exchanged these with a name that we could recognize, Midwestern State University or Saul Ross. And then we added a column to start categorizing these courses as to whether or not they were a communication core course or not. So coding means 1, these are going to be in our study, okay, it's communication core. 0, we're not interested in this class at this time because this is an incredibly long sheet, okay? One of the things that we ran into was questions associated with course designations. So even though we had, you could see that we didn't have all the information we needed at the core website, and even though we had this wonderful database with every course possible, we still didn't have enough information to say this is accurate, what we're pulling down. So we went to our third resource, which was the undergraduate catalog, which is Dr. Lucien, for every one of these universities. So Danielle and Kelly have pulled down one for each of these universities, and then opened it up, or scrolled through it, found the core curriculum, printed that off, and then based on that, we started checking off what the accurate core curriculum is for 2013, everything before 2014. It's really important that they did this work right now. It's just so fortuitous this happened at this time, because all of this is being pulled from websites, right? Because 2014, literally this month, they had hoped that they would have it up this week. They're going to put up the new core. They'll make reference to the old core for people who are still under the old catalog, but it's going to be more difficult to find. And some of these they're a little difficult for us to find now, and these are the current core. So pulled all these down, and now what we're doing is pulling the course descriptions from the catalogs, because course catalogs are kind of the contract. So whatever is here, whatever's stated here is what we're going to use for our study. So what's next? We're moving on to the public community colleges, because community colleges, associate degree, 2-year degree, that is really their primary objective, is the core curriculum. So we don't want to have just what's going on with state universities. We only want to see too what's going on with community colleges, because those are our colleagues too. And I really love the example of Dr. Lisman. We go back and forth all the time with colleagues at Midwestern and Vernon. We've got a really good relationship, proximity in and what we're doing. So again, we'll repeat the process. Then, the idea is that when we're finished, when we've got the 2014, to compare with the past core, we're going to start tracking trends. So we're going to see how it changes. So in the fall of 2014, we'll have this information. We've decided we want to track the study again in 2015. That seems really soon to do this, but what we found is that this change is so big that we don't know how much change will occur in the first year. Universities can submit new core curriculum every year, so we think that there'll probably be a substantial change, not just in 2014, but in 2015. Then based on that, we can say, this is what the core has been, this is how it shifted out, these are the trends that we see in 2014 and 2015, and then we'll revisit the study again and look at it in 2019.
So this is all very exciting for us, and we've been working really hard on it, but we were trying to think about what from this might be like a nice takeaway for you. And we came up with this list of, have you guys ever heard of Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits for Highly Effective People? It's a little bit older of a book, but it's a gentleman who basically develop these habits that, if you make them a part of your life, can help you become a more effective person. And so we took a little plate, borrowed that from him, and used that to help develop 7 habits of highly effective data geeks. And data geeks being a very complimentary term, right? Because learning how to work with data and how to manage data is a way of managing information, which can manage the way we think about things. So we have a handout that explains these as well. Thank you. And the idea of being a habit is that you're not having to consciously, after a while, think about doing each one of these. It's a habit, so automatically when you're working with your data, you're automatically doing these different tasks. First, you always want to document your process. As researchers, we like to be able to write down and keep track of what we're doing, because that can remind us later, right, for our own selves, and it helps us share information too, especially if we're working with someone else. It's important that the information get out of here and is shared with someone else using those communication skills. So always documenting our processes so that we can write them up later to get published and present, which hopefully you all will be doing as well. And when you're working with data files, when you're getting a file, you always want to, part of what you document is where you got that information and when you got it. So somebody asks you later, you can tell them where it came from. And if someone, let's say we got some